Welcome to the EntrePastors podcast on YouTube. This is a show that helps pastors think, act, and thrive as prosperous entrepreneurs. Well, hello there, and welcome to the EntrePastors podcast on YouTube. I'm John Sanders. I'm one of the co-founders of EntrePastors. So delighted to have you joining us for this week's episode. In today's show, you're going to hear a conversation that I had recently with a guy by the name of Chaz Freutel. Now, Chaz is the director of an organization called Noble. It stands for the Network of Business and Entrepreneurial Leaders. And their focus is really to empower the church to be mobilized to get out into the marketplace, to really support churches, to in turn support their people to be entrepreneurs and business owners, because rather than shying away from this topic in the church of business and marketplace activities, Noble believes this is something we need to be leaning into. At EntrePastors, we could not agree more. We think rather than resisting this type of thing, the church ought to be leaning into it. We think it's a good thing for the church to be engaging in the marketplace instead of seeing church and Christianity, or church and business, Christianity and business as being two separate worlds that should never touch. We think it's an amazing thing for God's people, pastors, and just regular, ordinary church folks to be out in the marketplace building and growing businesses. And so Chaz and I have an awesome conversation about bringing those two worlds together. You're going to enjoy this conversation. Without any further ado, let's get to the interview. Here we go. Well, Chaz, it is my honor to welcome you to the EntrePastors podcast, man. Welcome to the show.
Well, John, it's certainly a pleasure. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Hey, let's pretend that you and I just bumped into each other at a social gathering, and I ask you that question that we answer a lot. What do you do? I don't know you at all, so I meet Chaz. Chaz, what do you do in the world? How would you answer that question?
Well, very quickly, I would say I'm a kingdompreneur. So I focus on helping others primarily to start and grow businesses. Had the pleasure over the last 20 plus years to work with local businesses and work also with young people, so middle school and high schoolers. So over the last 20 years, probably helped well over 300 middle school and high school students start their own businesses. And I have run 3 entrepreneur centers here in Central Ohio, so have helped a number of adults as well to start businesses. So exciting times. I've owned multiple businesses now, and my real purpose is to really help people with understanding their purpose and helping them to become better leaders and entrepreneurs.
Okay, I love that, and I want to jump into all of that, but I'm going to ask 2 questions, and we'll kind of end up at one spot here. The first one is, how did you, I want to hear a little bit of your journey into being an entrepreneur. Like, what does that look like for you? But then you used the word kingdompreneur. Tell me about that. What's the desire and the drive to bring the kingdom into this? And I'll set it up by saying this: at EntrePastors, we often are combating that false dichotomy of the sacred versus the secular. And it's really a thing that holds a lot of pastors back from getting out into the marketplace, is because somebody told them that because God has a calling upon their life, they're commissioned for this sacred work that happens inside the church. And then they're a little bit hesitant to go out into that secular space in the marketplace. So I'd love to hear, how are you blending those, or where's that, passion coming from to be a kingdompreneur? What does that mean? So you can take that in any direction you want, but let's start there.
Okay. Well, the first question you asked, when you started my first business, and in 2009, I jumped in with both feet. So that was my first business that I started where I was all in. Okay. There wasn't any other backup income, right?
Okay.
Younger times, maybe doing some MLM, multi-level marketing, other types of things where I, had a full-time position, but could maybe toy with something on the side and make a little extra money or that type of thing. But jumped in with both feet in 2009. I realized that I was a connector, and didn't really realize that until later in my 40s. And so I left working for the Columbus Chamber of Commerce, where I was director of economic development, and started Get You Connected. And basically the purpose of that business was to connect business leaders to the people, products, and services they needed to succeed. So I was well connected in
Okay.
our area. And so people would pay me to get them appointments with key people in Central Ohio. So basically getting in at the top so they could work their way down to maybe a decision maker rather than having to work their way up.
Hmm.
And that's how I started that business. But now I've got privilege to have 7 businesses, including a couple nonprofits and one specifically that I want to continue to work more and more and more of my time on, which is really my kingdom purpose, I would say as well. But you asked about kingdompreneur. And actually, I don't know who necessarily came up with that, but a good friend of mine named Jeff Elder actually is the one who really started to use it and coin it and that kind of thing. So he may have been the creator of it.
All right.
Basically, there again, I think that's what that is. It's combining the kingdom with entrepreneurship. And I don't think there's any question if you look back into the Old Testament or look throughout the Bible that you're seeing business and and the kingdom being brought together in a number of instances. And you can go clear back to the Old Testament, to the Israelites, and 2 of the key tribes were Issachar and Zebulon. And if you look back at Issachar and Zebulon, they were 2 tribes that worked, probably the only 2 tribes that worked very closely together. Matter of fact, they lived next to each other in and amongst each other. And one of those tribes was the merchant tribe. They were the one that went out on ships and took products away and brought products in. And the other tribe was more focused on spiritual. And so coming together, the one kind of supported the other.
Hmm.
And so you can take that clear back to, Israelite days and bringing business and spirituality together. And so our goal these days, and actually our focus, or my primary focus, is really helping churches and helping people in the business world understand how they can bring kingdom in, which is very difficult to do in a secular world, but then also with churches, how to bring business in. So we kind of work at both ways, and we've had a good amount of success and enjoying some real nice growth right now.
Now you say the we. Go ahead and tell us who the we is. When like we have
Sure.
had success, who's we?
Well, I attend a church here in Central Ohio called Oasis City Church, which was actually planted by a church in Pittsburgh called Covenant Church of Pittsburgh, which was founded by Bishop Joseph Garlington. And anybody that really knows the pastoral world here in this country especially knows Bishop Joseph Garlington. He's one of the 3 founders of Promise Keepers, and just very, very well known in the pastoral world, really worldwide. But a group of pastors from there came to Central Ohio and planted a local church. And in 2018, the lead pastor, Pastor or Apostle Bill Thermalaris, came up with the idea at a church service one day to talk about really business and talk about entrepreneurship, because he had been a business owner prior to being a pastor. And so at one point during the service, he said, well, hey, anybody that is a business leader, owner, an entrepreneur, please come up front. And the percentage of folks that came up was overwhelming.
Hmm.
And at 2 services that they had, it's like 100 people that came up. And after that, he was like, well, you know what? We have to serve this community specifically. All right. We need to take care of these business leaders. They have a different set of issues. Plus, it's just good for the church, to help those folks specifically and help businesses, because businesses obviously can help churches in a different way, not just individual members who are volunteering their time and their treasure and their talents, but businesses can help in a different way. They can bring in different types of leadership and different types of services and offerings to a church and its members than your regular member can bring in. So I think kingdompreneur brings in a lot of things in that regard. It helps people that understand that our kingdom, believers and citizens of the kingdom that are in business, to encourage them to be able to be more focused on dedicating their businesses to the kingdom and to God. And then what do you do with that? How do you pray? How do you bring the kingdom into your business? And then how do you serve the kingdom with your business? And so we actually created an organization called Noble, and that stands for a network of owners, business leaders, and entrepreneurs. So that's what Noble stands for. And Noble was started at Oasis City Church. And there again, the whole goal there is co-creating a space with committed leaders to integrate the kingdom of God into their businesses and lives. Okay. And so we're a part of the church, but actually in 2021, we actually filed for a 501c3. So actually Noble is a separate entity now. And actually from a prophetic word, we are actually now starting to grow outside of Central Ohio. So we just launched our first location outside of Central Ohio in Pittsburgh at Covenant Church of Pittsburgh. Next month, we're going to New Jersey, and we're going to be launching in New Jersey. And then I believe later this year, it'll be Atlanta and then Jamaica. So actually prophetically, that we would go international in a short period of time as well.
So when you launch, what's happening when Noble sets up shop in a location? Like tell me what's going on, and I'll have some more questions too, but yeah. What happens inside of a group like that?
Well, thank you for that question, because that's really what I love to answer. And that is that Noble does a lot of great things, and we have really a proven process as to what we do. We do in-person and online events, and usually that's about 4 events on average a month. We also do online forums, and then we do one-on-one and mentor coaching to individual business owners. And in 2023, we did over 125 one-on-one coachings with existing and startup businesses. So we're pretty proud of that. And then obviously giving back to the community. But how we launch in a new area is we have a special program called Noble Academy. And what Noble Academy is it's really helping people to go from ideation clear toward launching their business. So it's typically a 3 to 4 month program where we go into a new church location, and we have weekends. So we're traveling in for a whole weekend. So we'll have a 4 or 5 hour session on a Saturday. We'll have a 4-hour session after church services at that location on Sunday. And basically the first day is on purpose. We like people to come in and understand what their purpose is. We get a lot of people that come in and want to be business owners, want to take that step, but they don't know what their purpose is yet. 99% of the people in the world, according to somebody that I love to watch and learn from, and that's Dr. Miles Monroe, don't know what their purpose is. And so our goal first is for them to understand what their purpose is, and is owning a business at this time or in the future, even in their cards. And you don't know that until you really understand what God's purpose is for you. So that's the whole first day, is just focusing on purpose. The second day, we really focus on Entrepreneurial Leap, which is a book that was written by Gino Wickman, who also created Entrepreneurial Operating System and Traction, which the majority of the Fortune 500 companies in the country operate under EOS. So it's a great platform to help businesses. And so we use his book in part to really educate and see then, is somebody truly an entrepreneur? And there's an assessment that's actually part of that process, and a number of other things that really help somebody to dig in, understand what it means to be an entrepreneur, how much risk really that you're taking, not only for yourself, but for your family, right? And going through all of that in detail. Unfortunately, after that second class, we have generally a drop-off of people that then attend that event and like, I'm not sure that I'm quite ready for that, or I'm not sure that really I'm an entrepreneur. But that Noble Academy program, where we have 6 on-site classes, and then we have a number of virtual classes, and it ends with actually pitching to real investors, and we award real startup dollars to every single business that pitches. Last 2 weekends ago, we actually had our closing class with the group in Pittsburgh at Covenant Church of Pittsburgh. And actually, we had 18 businesses that pitched, and we awarded over $18,000 in startup money to help those businesses to get started and go to the next step. Now, from this point on, Covenant Church of Pittsburgh will now start operating like Noble it has been for the last 2 years here in Central Ohio by having monthly classes, education, mentoring, all that kind of thing on a local basis that we've already established here in Central Ohio. So our goal is to plant these Noble sites and be able to work within that community in that church and really start to help the entrepreneur and business community to get going and understand there again what that means to bring church and business together.
Yeah, and I want to back up to that again for just a quick moment and give you a chance to go even deeper on something. You mentioned, and the first part's obvious. As a believer, as a pastor, I totally get why we would want to take the kingdom principles out to the workplace, and bring the spiritual to the business, so to speak. Like from an evangelistic standpoint, I totally get that. I want to, and you started to answer some of these questions already. So when I say go deeper, you can just expound maybe a little bit more, but help these pastors understand why the reverse. Why do we see value in bringing the business into the spiritual and bringing the business side of things to the church? And then the next question I'm going to ask that you can kind of set yourself up for is, why do you think that there's often a reluctance on the part of the church to really have conversation around things like entrepreneurialism and business? Like, why is that something that we just kind of let people go figure out for themselves instead of really embracing and leaning into? So the two questions, like, again, just what is the deeper value? Why is this something that we should value, bringing the business thing into the church world? And then why are churches often reluctant, in your experience and from what you've seen? Why is there that gap that exists? Why is this kind of a unique thing for a church to be leaning into the entrepreneurs among them?
Well, that's a great question, and I think I'll answer the latter part first. And what I've seen is that you've got pastors that don't understand business, right?
There you
They're
go.
not entrepreneurial necessarily themselves, or never would go in and start up, be a solopreneur. A solopreneur is somebody that just owns a single business or maybe a side hustle, something like that. An entrepreneur is another level. That's somebody that has multiple locations, multiple businesses. An entrepreneur and a solopreneur, a single solar business they're different. Okay. But a lot of pastors don't understand that, don't know that, and that's expected, right? But then also they may have leadership within the church that don't see the tie between bringing business and the church together, and they're fearful and don't really understand how that can work, and they don't want to upset the apple cart or anything like that. They want to keep things the way they are, status quo.
Yeah.
And oftentimes aren't open to look at new opportunities like that. So I see both of those: leadership within the church, and then the lead pastor themselves that just don't understand business. Okay. And so when you go in and start to talk to them and help them understand, and you ask them questions like this: well, who are your church leaders? Who are those church leaders? Well, oftentimes, many, sometimes the majority, sometimes all of the church leaders are business people. And why? Is because they're tested. They're tested. They're accountants who maybe own an accounting firm or a leader within their accounting organization. They're a marketing person who owns a marketing business, or they're the marketing leader within their organization. It's those kind of things. Oftentimes, your business leaders within the church are business people. Okay. But oftentimes they don't even see how the business really could be brought into the church, because they're not necessarily as comfortable bringing the church or bringing the kingdom more into their business. So I think that really a lot is of what I see in that regard. Where the benefit is, okay, is obviously you're bringing more leadership into the church. You're offering more leaders to the congregation. When Oasis started really highlighting businesses more, and Noble started being uplifted, and now I walk throughout the church, and even people I still don't know come up and say, "Oh, you're the Noble guy," right? They know who we are, and so it's the type of thing that now they're starting to think more about business and the church being together. Okay. And obviously, if you bring in more of the business people and the business people in the church feel like they're a part of the church more, well, maybe then they start to get their businesses tithing as well as their family,
Mm,
right? And a
yeah,
lot of business people don't think that way
yeah,
yet, right? They tithe maybe, but their business isn't tithing. Well, if you all of a sudden start bringing in these business folks, start helping them to become more kingdom wise with their business, and understanding that, hey, if you want your business to truly be a kingdom business, then your business should be tithing as well, and offering maybe your services or your products to the congregation. So I happen to be, some of my businesses happen to be in the car business, and so I have offered, like, to the admin and to the choir, and, or I should say, the worship ministry and others within our church. I'm like, hey, you know what? Let's bless these people. Let's give them cost on oil changes. Let's, somebody, church, is there somebody that really that we know that just absolutely needs a car right now? A mother that, is on her own, she's got a couple kids and she's got a broken down car, and so you're going to those businesses and you're saying, hey, this is how you can help others. It doesn't necessarily have to be money. It can be your services. It can be your products, those kinds of things. And then the congregation starts to get to know those businesses too.
yeah,
And, there tends to be a greater than relationship of, hey, you know what, if I'm going to go get an oil change, if I'm going to go get a haircut, if I'm going to go get something like this, why not support somebody else that I know is a kingdom business that's also a member of my church as well? And so it creates even a stronger community in that regard, which I think benefits everybody. It benefits the church from a financial standpoint, and I just think from a stickiness standpoints, from a member standpoint. But also it just helps the members. The members realize that, hey, we've got some friends that I can go to if I've got an accounting issue. I'm just not going to go look in the phone book or ask a neighbor or something like that. Boy, somebody in the church can help me. Somebody for that, that's got kingdom principles, and hopefully that's a different type of advice than maybe what they would get someplace else. Just
yeah.
those kind of things I think are all very positive.
Man, I love that. So what's your big vision for Noble? Like if you could write the story, however you could, see it going as awesome as possible, what does that look like a couple years from now?
Well, and if you're familiar there again with entrepreneurial operating system,
Hmm.
in EOS, there's what's called a VTO, or Vision Traction Organizer, which we do every year. We started with one to create the organization, then we do them every year. Well, we created a vision, and the vision is creating a global network for generational leadership. Okay, and partly that's because we received a prophetic word about Noble, and that prophetic word said that we would go international. So we didn't just stop at Central Ohio. We knew it was going to go farther because we heard from, the Holy Spirit, that that's
Yeah,
what was going to happen. And now it just has. Okay, and it wasn't something we forced. We certainly planned for it.
sure.
Okay, we planned for it in our VTO, and now it's happening. So Pittsburgh wanted us to be there next. Okay, that's who planted our church here in Westerville in Central Ohio. Okay, so they wanted to be next. Okay, the gentleman, the pastor Eric Butler, who gave us the prophetic word, has a church in New Jersey. All right, so he spoke to us and he said, "Boy, I would love you guys to come here and start Noble in my church." Okay, where we're going next is based on Bishop Joseph Garlington some years created a grouping of churches called Reconciliation Ministries International, which is somewhere in the neighborhood. I don't know exact number, 70 plus churches around the United States and internationally.
Hmm.
And so Noble has started now to get known within those RMI, or Reconciliation Ministry International, brother sister churches. Okay,
Okay.
that are around, and now those are starting to come to us and say, can our church be next? Okay, that we go. So actually, after New Jersey, starting in the end of February, a few months after that, I think we're going to Atlanta, to a church down there. And then I think after Atlanta, we're going to Jamaica. So we're being invited by one of the RMI members to go then to Jamaica. But we're open really to go to anywhere.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, we've realized we need to beef up our volunteers for this organization. We need to beef up our staff. So actually, Noble is growing within it. But a beautiful thing that we're doing, all the people that were our volunteers and our staff people own their own businesses. So they're either a contractor for us providing services to Noble, or they're a volunteer, but they're a business themselves. So everybody that's part of it understands business. Okay.
Yeah.
So whatever role they're playing for us, they're a business owner. So they understand the positives and negatives and pitfalls and everything, the hoops that you've got to go through to be successful. And that way we have a better chance of helping others, because we don't have, and I hate this in a negative term, academics who know business. We actually have business owners that are in those roles helping us to help others start and grow businesses.
Yeah. Practitioners versus the theorists, the ones who have the theory but don't necessarily have the practical hands-on.
Exactly.
Well,
Exactly.
one of the reasons I asked that question about your vision was I'm curious, like if there's a pastor listening to this, because I want to ask a question that's about the kind of corporate church and then themselves personally. So if there's a pastor that is hearing this, go, man, I'd love to bring something like this to my church. My people could be blessed by this. That's where I was going with that. Is what does that
Sure.
look like for them to reach out and say, hey, we'd love to explore bringing you guys here to our community?
Well, obviously, we certainly sat down and created a plan. Prayed about it. Wanted this organization to be in God's hands. So we're hoping our plans are part of what God wants us to do, right? But that's where we go next, is in God's hands,
Mhm.
because we haven't dictated where that next location beyond New Jersey really is going to be. And so, a pastor that's part of your network could hear this and could contact us and say, boy, could you maybe work with us in some fashion? And I would love to do that if we can, right? And so our growth will be dictated by, there again, who wants us to go there. And I'm sure, since we're a kingdom organization, that the Lord will provide us with the means to do that, whether
Yeah.
that's growing our staff, whatever that means, to try to get out to as many locations as we can. Obviously, right now we're limited by those people like me that can go out and start Noble Academy and these initial programs that I think get us started. The great reason why we start a new location with Noble Academy is because now I in Pittsburgh have 18 new businesses that are all fired up about being a new business, right? And they
Love it.
still want to learn like crazy. And they know that they're just at the starting point of
Yeah.
learning. So that who better to help Noble then start providing classes and start to grow in Pittsburgh than people that need it, are
Yeah.
excited about it, and just went through a program to help people and help them to get started. So that's why Noble Academy is our lead in going into a location and getting started. And we understand that in the future, it's going to have to be more than me and a team of a few other people that are the ones that go out and get that program started. We're going to have to start duplicating our efforts and others that can do those same teachings.
Cool. Well, then this would be, I have maybe two more questions. This would be normally saved for the end, but how would people reach out to you if someone wanted to go learn more about you guys and see what you're doing? What's the best place and where would you direct them to connect with you?
Well, very simple. It would come to our website, which is thenoblewisdom.com. And Noble is Noble, the network of owners, business leaders, and entrepreneurs. So thenoblewisdom.com.
Fabulous. Okay, here's probably my last question, unless I think of a follow-up. But um, speak to that pastor that's listening to this right now. Maybe not so much they're listening through the corporate lens of their church and bringing it there, but just to their own personal life. Because we have pastors all over the spectrum that are listening to this. Those that maybe are full on, like I'm ready to launch my business, or I've already launched it and I'm excited about it. I've truly wired to be an entrepreneur. And we've got other guys that are probably further back on the journey, some to the point of not even being convinced that this is a good thing yet. And we're not here to change anyone's mind.
Yeah.
But if someone's willing to learn and lean in and listen, I would definitely want to influence them. So here's what I'm going to give you as a question, and you can take it any direction you want. Speak to that pastor that's listening to this, that's further back on the journey, and maybe they're wrestling with, like, I don't even know if this is okay for me to do this. What's my church going to think if they see me launching a business? What are my fellow pastor friends in my, seminary class going to think if they see me out trying to start a business? What would you say to challenge them, to encourage them, to give them permission, to give them a kick in the seat? Like, you can give them whatever you want. So what would you say to that pastor that just needs to hear from you today on this?
Well, we all obviously know that there's some pastors out there that are dreamers and have had business ideas their whole lives, right? And that's something that they probably should then consider, all
Hmm.
right? And then working with them, and then obviously working with their leadership to see if that's something that's feasible within that particular church. But let me give you one great example of how so many of your pastors that have churches, that have church homes, that have property, those kind of things, can potentially get into an entrepreneurship within their church, possibly the easiest way.
Okay.
Many churches have commercial kitchens. Okay. Many churches have commercial kitchens because they have whatever types of programs or whatever to be able to serve their congregation or the different programs they have within the church. And so they have commercial kitchens. One of the things that we're working with here in Central Ohio is we're starting to put together a program where we go out to churches and help them to become little businesses.
Hmm.
Okay. Because right now, food trucks and catering businesses and those kind of things are exploding.
Hmm.
Okay. People that have small businesses and they're providing home delivery food to folks. And it could be members of the congregation that can't travel or whatever, can't cook. It could be those that are on it more of a dietary restriction and they're making special foods for them and delivering. That's becoming very popular, we know, across a food delivery in a more, nutritional way. Okay. Things like that. What better place than, we know oftentimes that the commercial kitchen is not used very often, except for maybe on weekends or something like that. Why not rent that commercial kitchen out to members who have those catering businesses or have that little baking business or something like that, because the states require, okay, that if you're making a certain level of food, okay, you have to do it in a commercial kitchen. You can't do it at home. Many states allow baking to be done at home up to a certain level, but beyond that, any other types of foods have to be prepared, have to be done out of a commercial kitchen. Well, churches can get into that business just by renting out on a time basis their commercial kitchens to be used for that. There might need to be some adaptations or some adjustments to that. But in addition to that, here's another statistic that in Central Ohio, there's a shortage of places just to park food trucks,
Hmm.
just to park them, because you can't park them everywhere. You can't park them in front of your house in a lot of places. Some developments won't allow that, and they're large, and you want them protected. Churches have large parking lots that oftentimes aren't fully used. In Central Ohio here, food truck owners are paying on average about $350 a month for a parking space,
Hmm.
just a parking space. Then you turn around and you give that food truck owner the opportunity to come in and prepare their food for their days, out in the area, in your commercial kitchen, which you're charging them hourly for that as well. And all
Yeah.
of a sudden, your church is in a nice little business, and they already have the equipment for the most part established and the licensing to have that commercial kitchen potentially ready to go. Now, again, there might need to be some adaptations, and each state is a little different and things like that. But the bottom line is many churches already have a business ready to go, with a little bit of work right in there. And how much money then could they make to help pay the mortgage, help make them, add another wing, those kind of things when they've got that extra kind of incoming, coming in. And I'm just talking about there again, one idea.
One idea.
Another
And
idea,
oh, sorry, go ahead. Keep going.
yeah, no, and this will be quick. Another idea that's very, very popular is churches are establishing themselves in old shopping centers.
Hmm.
Okay. And what they're doing is they're taking the anchor on one end, which might have been the largest business on one end, or building something behind it or whatever, and they're putting churches in, and then all of the shopping center storefronts, okay, they're renting out to members of the congregation or other businesses, and those storefronts are paying for the church. Okay.
Yep.
They're paying for the church. And I can give you a number of examples, not off the top of my head, but connect you with a number of where that's happening,
Yeah.
where churches are placing themselves, at least in a startup mode, and sometimes in a growth mode, where they're in that kind of environment where there's already storefronts to be able to start renting those spaces out and bring income immediately into the church.
Well, the thing I got really excited about is this is the second time today in this day that you and I are recording this that I've heard a pastor or someone in this space talk about that very idea of churches using their commercial kitchens for that. There's a bigger backstory behind this, and we've not gone public with any of this yet to our platform. So I'm just being real and authentic with you as we're having this conversation. Les and I are having a very serious conversation right now about adding another layer to EntrePastors. And essentially, it's this idea of entre churches where we're coming alongside of churches and helping them do exactly that. Maybe it isn't, like you said, commercial kitchens is just one idea of many ways that churches can utilize their underutilized, buildings and facilities and properties as a way of generating income to sustain the kingdom work that they're doing. Here's my question for you. I just floated that idea. I'm in so many different groups of pastors on Facebook, and if I can be just very transparent, most of these groups just annoy the mess out of me because of the small-mindedness of so many of these pastors. And I floated that idea in there, and I said something. I could go look up the exact post, but it was something to this effect of, hey, for any of you churches that are struggling with, decreased giving, or your budget isn't where it needs to be, how open are you to the idea of using your facilities as a way of generating income? And I had, some more words around that. And I said, if you're open to it, like what are the challenges that come up? Is it, we'll never get this past the board? Is it, what is, like, we're overwhelmed, we don't know where to start? I got crucified in this group of pastors. So I'm not directing this at you. You're in a saved community to say what you just said here. Because earlier you said something about you can turn your church into a little business. That resonates with me. Simply asking that question in a group of thousands of pastors got me called everything but a Jesus follower. And I got all the lectures and sermons about the church isn't a business. We're not in this to make money. So I'm just teeing it up for you to knock it out of the park. What would you say to that pastor that's resistant to that idea, going, man, the church, this isn't the mission we're to be about. Like, we're to be saving souls, not renting out retail space. And so take it however you want to take it. But what would you say to that pastor?
Well, I certainly won't have maybe the only answer or necessarily the best answer, but this is what I would say. You've got a facility sitting there that's being underutilized.
Mm-hmm.
Bottom line, it's being underutilized. How many churches out there are completely underutilized? All right.
Yeah.
You've got business owners out there who, if you've got some extra office space or whatever, you can become a little, kingdom entrepreneur center where you've just got some people that are coming in there and they're operating their whatever business out of a little office that has a phone, a desk, maybe a little table, something like that. But you're bringing them into the kingdom, environment, and you're helping them hopefully then also by providing them with somebody maybe similar to me that is a seasoned business owner that can help those businesses to be able to grow. So there's so many different things that a church could do. A church then starts an LLC on the side. Okay. And that could be led by the pastor, it could be led by, business leaders, that are part of the church. But you start a separate LLC. So it's not the church's 501c3,
Sure.
but a separate LLC that operates that potential income and that potential operating. So basically, you're just leasing your space out to another entity. Okay.
Yeah.
And hey, many churches lease their space out to other churches,
Yeah.
right? So why not to another entity? They do it to other churches, and
Yeah.
that becomes a business because they're usually charging those other churches to
Right.
come in and use their space. Well, they're in business then.
There
You're
you
in
go.
business then when you let another church come in, right? So why not consider it the same kind of thing by creating an LLC that is overseen by the church or however they set it up, and they start having those kinds of opportunities there. Now you've got to have watchdogs, because obviously you're still going to have maybe problems. You're a little business that maybe doesn't do things or made a bad decision, and just like any member, how do you deal with that, right? How do you deal with that business that maybe, does something by mistake or whatever? So you got to have the proper establishment, in there. But I think it's very short-sighted to say that the church is just a church,
Yeah.
right? And you can't serve souls, and you can't also serve souls through the business environment and teach people how to be good employees. Okay, that's another thing too.
Yeah.
Bringing the young people in and giving them internships within businesses that might be associated or linked with the church somehow. Being able to teach people really how to do business. Okay. And that there can be so many positives that can be done that way. But I understand, somebody that business is so foreign to them that they're like, boy, that just is just,
Yeah.
there's no, right?
Yeah.
But you've got others who has that in them, maybe has lead pastors or leadership that has some of that business, you know, um, urge in them to get involved in something like that. And there again, there are models out there where churches have done it.
Right.
And I would say the best policy there is just to explore how they did it, and if you guys are looking to move, forward in a direction like that, at least to have people understand what the possibilities are. I think that's just a great opportunity to
Yeah.
consider. Just like you'd add a new kids program or a new sports program at the church. I've been involved with Fellowship of Christian Athletes for many years, and we do camps at churches.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, churches make money at that because they'll charge for the use of the facilities or the use of this or having somebody on staff be there to do this. They're making money at that. Tell me that's not business, right?
Exactly.
But it's also bringing young kids and their parents into the church, all right? And they're offering programs like that from a biblical perspective. They're teaching kids sportsmanship. They're teaching kids, these kind of things. I've been involved with Fellowship of Christian Athletes, FCA, for many years, and that's that link between church, okay, and sports. And then FCA is allowed to be in schools. So then it's bringing pastors into the school to lead the FCA huddle. So then you're bringing church into the secular school. And of course, a lot of people are like, oh, no, you can't do that. Well, yes, you can.
You
Yes,
sure
you can.
can. Turns out
And why
Jesus
not
shows up with
consider
me.
these outside para-ministry links and outside business things? It's just there again, but I understand how some people would just, hey, I'm a pastor, that's all I am.
Yeah.
And, I don't have time or energy or the thought process. I get it. I get it. But there's
Yeah.
certainly going to be some churches out there that are going to say, yeah, you know what? Let's give this some thought.
Yeah,
Let's
no, you said it well when you said it's a short-sighted view to just lean on that and just be so close-minded to it. Because I get why someone might naturally have that reaction, but and as I said earlier, our goal probably even still won't be to convince the unconvinced, but I believe that this is going to be a really good option for a lot of churches to look at this. I think for far too long, the church has ignored the business side of life. We've just that's the icky secular world. We'll just stay holed up inside this building and talk church stuff. And I think for the church to really thrive in the future, that must happen. Like there needs to be a much healthier integration of the kingdom as a holistic. It touches every area of our life. What I was saying earlier, like it turns out Jesus shows up with me no matter where I go. So that whole separation of church and state, or that whole separation of church and business, like Jesus goes everywhere I go. And so my whole life is a Christian business or presence when Christ comes with me on all of these endeavors that I'm a part of. So, man, I love what you guys are doing, and we're going to be cheerleaders for you and point people to you. And we're grateful to have you pour into our community today, Chaz. I'm grateful for your time, and we wish you well as you continue to get your word out into the world and serve the community that you're serving.
Well, however we can be supportive of you, however we can be supportive of this initiative that you're considering moving forward, please don't hesitate. Number one, I think that would be fantastic, and we can provide any guidance or whatever that we can. And there again, those pastors that are going to be listening to this, reach out on our website and contact us, and we'd love to talk more thoroughly. Get a few of my senior people, maybe even our main pastor that we're working with that I was sharing with you, and get them on and get those perspectives. Get a few different perspectives from some church leaders that are on me with those kind of calls, as well as bringing our senior pastor, whatever, into a call like that, and just maybe make somebody feel a little bit more comfortable as to taking a look at that opportunity.
Well, hey, thanks for watching this episode of the EntrePastors podcast. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can be notified every time we release a new episode. If you'd like to get connected to other pastors who are learning to think, act, and thrive as prosperous entrepreneurs, then we invite you to check us out on Facebook. Just search for the EntrePastors Connect group, answer a few of our simple questions there, and we'd love to include you in the conversations. And if you're really ready to go to the next level, then we invite you to join our EntrePastors membership community. When you become a monthly subscriber, you will receive access to courses, exclusive community, and coaching that will help you along in your own EntrePastors journey. If there's anything else we can do to serve you, please visit us at EntrePastors.com, and we will do our best to serve you there. God bless everybody. See you soon.